Hey everyone. For this discussion, we're going to talk about a book. We are going to talk about Star Wars Tarkin by James Luceno. Now, James Luceno had previously done the novelization of Episode 3, and he had also done the follow-up book, Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, which sadly is no longer canon. I think it still should be because it takes place just days after the events of, Episode 3, but that's neither here nor there. It's considered part of the Legends canon. This is actually considered canon. There's going to be spoilers for this book, so if you haven't read it, don't watch. This will be your warning. I'm not going to go into full details with everything because that'd take too long, but I'll just give you my thoughts on it. It was a good read. Basically, it's a chase story. But you also get background on how Tarkin grew up, how he became the ruthless person that he was, what molded him that way, what made him into the man who was perfect to oversee the construction of the Death Star and control pretty much that part of the galaxy for the Emperor and actually become, behind Vader, like third in command of the Empire. It was pretty much him and Vader were equals in the Emperor's eyes. As Palpatine had also, you find out, had groomed him from when he was in his early 20s to be a part of his empire. And, yeah. You also get some nods to how he pretty much knows who Darth Vader is under the armor, but also knows that to voice such things out loud would probably be detrimental to his health, which I thought was kind of funny. Yeah, but basically, he's in charge of this one base. Now, the base is secretly important. Most Imperials think that he was being punished for being sent there, but no, the base is where a lot of the stuff that was being funneled to the Death Star construction was controlled from. And the Death Star at the time was being built around the planet of Geonosis, which, if you remember in Episode 2, Poggle the Lesser, the head of Geonosis there, he gave Dooku the actual schematics for the Death Star. So, yeah. His base comes under attack right after he had received a distress call from the next point in the chain of the supplies that they were also being attacked. And it turns out that the earlier attack was false. It was to get him to send the one Star Destroyer he had near his base away so that a real attack could happen at his base. There was a group of, you can call them rebels, I guess. They weren't really, because the rebellion isn't around yet. This is 5 years after Episode 3, so you're talking still early in the Empire's rule. And basically they have the technology. It's actually old Clone War technology that they made useful to fake HoloNet broadcasts, including people and things like that. And the only reason why Tarkin was able to catch it was because he was actually involved during the Clone Wars in stopping Dooku from doing the same thing. So he recognized the flaw in this fake broadcast. So he wisely did that. His base was able to withstand the bombardment, and the Star Destroyer that he made leave the system was able to come right back. So, even though the ones who did the attack escaped. So he's immediately called to Coruscant, and you find out that the Emperor has turned the Jedi Temple into his new palace. And when Tarkin gets there, he's not brought to the Emperor right away. He's brought down below to where Darth Vader is interrogating some criminals, and one representative that was supposed to be keeping them in check. And the whole trial ends with Vader just killing the guy that was in charge. So just making sure that the others fall in line. Typical Darth Vader stuff. And then Darth Vader and Tarkin end up going up to the floor just below the Emperor's throne room. The throne room is actually the very top of the center spire of the Jedi temple where the council used to sit. He turned that into his throne room. How nice. So Vader gets out one floor below and tells Tarkin he's going up by himself. And the Emperor and Tarkin talk, and Tarkin has been trying to convince the Emperor for a while that they really need a sector overseer specifically in charge of the Death Star's construction, just because of everything that's going on. So you have that. And what ends up happening is the Emperor sends Vader and Tarkin to this one planet that was just blown to hell during the Clone Wars and at the end of the Clone Wars. And while they're there, Tarkin's personal Corvette, which is actually based off of, let's see if I can find a picture of it. It's based off of a stealth Corvette that was used by Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars, one of the Clone Wars episodes. Very good episode, too. But similar technology runs through Tarkin's personal Corvette. And the ship is called the Carrion Spike. There's a reason why it's called that. It has something to do with his upbringing and a certain formation on his planet. So you find out that the Emperor says something to him to the effect of, or he actually says it to Vader. It's just funny how three people from the Outer Rim who are in basically the same sector, Vader from Tatooine, Palpatine from Naboo, and Tarkin from Eriadu, they're all basically within a 30-degree sweep of the galaxy of each other, so they're real close. How they are the most powerful men in the galaxy now. Pretty cool. So basically what happens is Vader had his meditation chamber on board the Carrion Spike, and they start using that to track who took it. So the people who took it are trying to figure out how they're tracking it, because they didn't find any tracking on board. And it's the same people who sent the false signal earlier in the book. So they go through, they find out that they're tracking Vader's sphere, and they eject it. But Tarkin knows his ship, and he knows how much fuel it needs and things like that, so they're able to deduce where the ship's going to be. All the while you get snippets from his past during certain chapters. So it's basically Vader and Tarkin tracking down his Corvette, which they don't really get back. It's when they do get it back, it's in such bad shape that it's just going to be scrapped. But Tarkin is given his own Imperial class Star Destroyer as compensation for it, and he's made Grand Moff, that he is in Episode 4, and put in charge of the Death Star project. Now, it's a real good adventure. At the end, you find that the whole thing, they were going to try and disrupt the supplies going to the Death Star, even though these people didn't know what was being built. They just knew it was a big, giant weapon being built by the Empire. They didn't know exactly the nature of it, even though one of the guys was a former Imperial. But pretty much they all end up hanging, except for the one leader who used to be an Imperial. Tarkin ends up trapping him on his home world, and basically leaving him to die, but leaving him enough that if the guy survives, he'll have fun chasing him again. But the odds are, because the guy broke his leg and he's trapped in this like 4-meter deep pit, that he's not going to get out. And at night, the predators would probably come and eat him anyway. So it's kind of funny. But you find out that the parts that were so critical at the beginning to get to the Death Star project were actually for the hyperdrive. The Death Star project had progressed to the point where they wanted to move it away from Geonosis, move it somewhere more secure. And so the book ends with Tarkin being brought aboard the Death Star, which pretty much just a frame with its engines and reactor and stuff. Though the control center that where he basically died in episode 4, that was completed, so they were slowly moving out of Geonosis orbit, which is where the book ends. You get some nice moments between Tarkin and Vader, like I said. Tarkin tells Vader the story of why he named the ship the Carrion Spike, which happened to be one of the last challenges when he was growing up on his homeworld. The Carrion Spike is a formation where these primates, very, very visceral primates, lived, and how Tarkin was able to take them all out by just taking out their leader and then the successive leader, which caused them to scatter and run. So, yeah. Good read. Like I said, I warned you at the beginning that I was going to spoil things. Hopefully you've read this. I give this like a 4 out of 5. It's not bad. I'm currently reading Dark Lords of the Sith. That's not bad. I don't think it's as good as this. But when I'm done, I'll do a video on that. And I'm going to read Aftermath, or the first of the Aftermath trilogy. And I'll give you my thoughts on that eventually. That'll probably be a month or so from now. But yeah. Tarkin. Good book. And a good look into the psychology of one of Star Wars' best characters on the Empire side. I mean, Vader's awesome, but for like regular military, Tarkin was the ultimate strategist they had, and his loss was probably what ended up dooming the Empire originally. So there you go. My recommendation.